Welcome, everybody, to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, August 15th. First up is our invocation and pledges, which will be led by Councilman Roman.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Make one up. Okay, please join me for an impromptu prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us come together tonight to the business of the city. We appreciate your guidance in everything that we do. Thank you for taking care of our first responders, our police, our firemen, our EMTs, and give us the strength to do what is right for our city now and into the future. Amen.
Amen.
So first up on our agenda is item E1, which is to recognize the Farmers Branch Fire Department for receiving the nationally recognized American Heart Association's Mission Lifeline EMS Silver Achievement Award for its commitment to offering rapid, research-based care to people experiencing the most severe form of heart attack and stroke. So, Captain Evans, you want to come up? Chief? Everybody? So, Mission Lifeline EMS is the American Heart Association's national initiative to advance the system of care for patients with high-risk, time-sensitive disease states such as severe heart attacks and stroke. The program helps reduce barriers to prompt treatment, starting from when 911 is called to EMS transport and continuing through hospital treatment and discharge. Optimal care for heart attack and stroke patients takes coordination between the individual pre-hospital providers and healthcare systems. The Mission Lifeline EMS Achievement Award focuses on agencies' on-scene care, bringing to the forefront the collaboration and contributions to patient care for pre-hospital providers. Captain?
Yes, sir.
So this is the award that you received,
Yes, sir.
from the American Heart Association, which proudly presents and recognizes the Farmers Branch Fire Department, Mission Lifeline EMS Silver with Target Heart Attack Honor Roll, Achievement Award EMS Agency for 2023.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, City Management, and the city. Thank you so much for having us here to present this award to y'all. And there's many criteria that is made to meet this award. And I just want to mention a few before Chief Latimer takes over. So the first 7 is what meets the Lifeline EMS Award. And then the last 2 is what meets the honor roll for the Target Heart Attack Award. So the first 7 are pre-arrival notification for suspected stroke, documentation of last known well for patients with suspected stroke, the evaluation of blood glucose for patients with suspected stroke, stroke screen performed and documented, 12 lead, is a picture of your heart, performed within 10 minutes for suspected heart attack, aspirin administration for STEMI, which is ST elevation myocardial infarction, person having a heart attack. That's shown through the picture of the 12 lead, as well as the pre-arrival notification that's less than 10 minutes for the heart attack. So that might not seem a lot to you, but just imagine for us to arrive on scene, try to figure out what's going on, because we haven't met you before. We don't know what's going on. Hey, what all else could it be? Because there's a whole bunch of different protocols that we can go down the road. Is it diabetes? Is it heart attack? Is it stroke? Is it just chest pain? So there's so many things the paramedics have to go through their mind to try to figure this out. And they got to diagnose this very quickly because this is life or death type situation. And then they got to hurry up and get a picture of the 12 lead, get everything up, get IV established, get them on the cot, get them out into the ambulance, and then get to the right destination that has a cath lab. And so you have to meet all these criterias within a very short amount of time. So these guys are very quick at what they do. And it's with the support of y'all helping us get the training that we need, certifications, everything to show. It's not just Chief Latimer just telling y'all every time he comes up here that we have the best fire department. This is proof for the American Heart Association that we really are the best fire department. And there's more to come. And so that is just for the Mission Lifeline Award. Next one is the Target Heart Attack. So this is for the paramedics to first arrive as soon as they get to patient care to getting them to the cath lab at the hospital where they open them up and open up the heart. So that has to be done in less than 90 minutes. So imagine us getting to the patient, doing all of that, getting them to the ambulance, driving them to a hospital, get them all checked in, and get them to the cath lab, and then for the doctors and nurses to get all this. So this is also contribution in with helping the hospital staff helping us out, being quick. Then the last one is DOR, the thrombolytics administration. So this is kind of putting PAM on your arteries to kind of let the blood flow right through and get oxygen to all the body. And so that is the 9 criteria that's made to get these awards, both awards. So without further ado, Chief.
Mayor Lynn, thank you very much. Council, city management, thank y'all. Our public, thank you. And so I'll go quick. I know most people are like, oh no, he's gonna go long. But Ben told me I have a cap. He said 30 minutes, so here we go. I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, thank y'all very much. We were up here in budget season a year ago asking for an extra head count. Showed you our structure along with our city manager, Ben Williamson, talking about what we needed to build this out in our administration office. And with y'all's support, we were able to add that head count. That was EMS Captain Terry Evans, which also allowed us to move that position, separate where we had 2 and 1, and brought over our Assistant Chief Wayne Henderson. And because of y'all supporting that, we're now able to highlight and show what we've been doing all along. We have ways to quantify to show that we're not, I say that we're the best, they say that we're the best. We have the best firefighters and paramedics and police officers in the city, around the nation. We do. That's why they're coming here. So thank y'all very much for trusting us, trusting me in this, and as we go forward in our budget season. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. It really is a group effort. We can't do it. No one department does it alone. We're very, very fortunate to have all of you. Next up is E2, which is a presentation of the Employee of the Month Award to John Carpenter of the Police Department. This is John. So at the City of Farmers Branch, we have a long culture that nurtures respect, where we value everyone's opinion and acknowledge their perspective. We strive for excellence, We constantly look for ways to do our very best. We believe in accountability, we care, and we trust. These are the core values, and this is our respect or REACT culture, our REACT culture. The leadership of the City of Farmers Branch appreciates the effort, dedication, and time our employees put into their job. The city has a program to recognize employees for depicting these values. We appreciate and recognize our employees' hard work and are here to recognize their efforts this evening. To recognize our REACT culture, our Employee of the Month is John Carpenter for the month of July. John is a police officer who has been with the city, Farmers Branch, for almost 8 years. During his tenure, he has constantly proven himself as a caring public servant, earning recognition in the REACT program for his exceptional dedication and to going above and beyond his responsibilities to assist those in need. From purchasing gas for a stranded motorist to showing compassion to a scared little boy during a difficult time, Officer Carpenter exemplifies the true meaning of caring. His actions serve as an inspiration to all of us, reminding us of the positive impact we can make when we extend a helping hand to others. So please join me in congratulating Officer Carpenter.
Hello, everybody. Jay Siegel, Assistant Chief, Farmers Branch Police Department. Let me introduce the other officers who are in here because they rarely get recognition. So we got Officer Ramirez, Officer Cervantes, Corporal Chernia, Sergeant Vasquez, who is Officer Carpenter's commanding officer. Of course, we have Chief McCoy there, and then behind Officer Carpenter, we have Lieutenant DeMoores. So we were happy to learn of Officer Carpenter's Employee of the Month selection, but we weren't surprised. The Selfless Caring Act that put him on the selection committee's radar is not an anomaly. Rather, it is indicative of the type of officer and more importantly, the type of person that he is. So just a little background on Officer Carpenter. He came to us from another agency in 2015. He hit the ground running. He's a bike officer. He's a member of the Honor Guard. And most importantly, he's a police training officer. He's received 2 commendations from citizens for his professionalism, and in 2018 received the Life Saving Award. So on behalf of the police department, John, congratulations on this well-deserved honor, and thank you for what you do day in and day out. Thank you.
So we have this beautiful award that we're presenting you this evening as Employee of the Month for July 2023. You see it? I'm afraid I might drop it. So I don't want to take it out. It really is pretty. So thank you again for all that you do for the city. Want to say anything?
I appreciate this. We do a lot of things around the city that just go unrecognized. Every officer here, every first responder, it's the little things that we do, and when we get recognized for it, it means the world to us. It makes us feel like what we do actually means something, so I really appreciate it.
Can we get one with and without that?
Oh, sure. Okay. Jeff directed the head off. I can't see Chief McCoy.
Here we go. All right, here we go. Yes. All right, wait, one with the hat.
That's what he normally looks like.
That's right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Items of community interest for the council meeting of Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. Our new budget is ready for your review, and it's on our city website. Just go to farmersbranchtx.gov, scroll down, and look for the article on the new fiscal year operating budget. Our city council will also host a town hall to discuss it at the Branch Connection. That'll be at 6 p.m. August 29th, and you're invited. New hours at City Hall began this week. We're open longer every day, Monday through Friday, from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Our code enforcement, inspections, permits, open records, and utility billing departments will be ready to serve as always. Local schools are back in session. That means students are in school crosswalks on weekday mornings and afternoons. Please slow down and get off the cell phone when behind the wheel. Nothing is more important than protecting our kids. Help us clear the shelter. It's a nationwide pet adoption and donation campaign. Our Animal Adoption Center has reduced fees this month to help encourage pet adoption. This week only, cat adoptions are only $10. Dog adoptions are reduced to $20. Visit them at 3727 Valley View. And we have a new green grabber on the streets of Farmers Branch. Technically, it's called a knuckle boom truck. The new model has fewer moving parts, so it should require less maintenance, and the container box tips when unloading, making trips to the landfill much quicker. See if the Farmers Branch Power Switch can help save on your electricity bill. It's a group energy buying program that allows you to benefit from lower electricity rates through bulk purchasing. There's no cost to participate. Just go to farmersbranchtx.gov and search for Power Switch. No more permit fees for curb numbers and lettering. The City Council recently modified the size requirements also. Numbers and letters on residential curbs must be solid white, 3 inches tall, with the background at least 1 inch higher than the digits. Learn everything you'd like to know about wearing the blue uniform and a badge at our next Citizens Police Academy. Beginning later this month, you'll understand crime scene investigations, dispatch, patrol, and a whole lot more. It's free. Go to our city website at farmersbranchtx.gov to register. Also, come by the Bark Park for a Bark and Brew on August 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. We'll have food, dog-friendly vendors, and photo ops. Muse Brewing will be sampling beer as well. And lastly, reserve your seat and your teacup now for the annual Farmers Branch Christmas Teas. Saturdays, December 2nd and 9th, tea times will be at 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Tickets sell out every year. Space is limited. Register by phone at 972-406-0184. And as always, you can sign up for city news at farmersbranchtx.gov. Mayor?
Thank you, Jeff. Let me just reiterate that the next Citizens Police Academy starts on August 31st. This is an excellent opportunity for citizens to get a behind-the-scenes look at the police department and how it operates and how it functions. It's free to residents. It's also available to folks who work in Farmers Branch. So there is still space available, and if you're interested in that, see me afterwards, send me a note, or contact our police department. Next up is our report on study session items, and we covered a lot of ground earlier today regarding our study session agenda. Our first item was to discuss regular agenda items. Councilman Merritt had a question regarding H2, which dealt with the speed study that's going to be done on Valley View between Mercer Crossing and I guess the Burlington Northern Railroad tracks. So that part of the city does have a different speed limit than the rest of the city. Councilman Jackson had a question regarding the radar that is being paid for out of the red light camera funds. So we have money that's left over from red light camera fund, and we're using that to buy new radars for the police department. And then Councilman Roman had a question regarding item H8, which has to do with the mowing of ag property, basically, and the city's change in that. We're aligning our ordinance with the new state ordinance, so, or state law, I should say. Item A2 dealt with the upcoming fiscal year budget, and just want to remind everybody that the council is going to have a workshop next week to discuss this. There will be a budget town hall on August 29th, as Mr. Brady said, and that is open to anybody, so please feel free to attend. That will be at the Branch Connection. Item A3 was an update on the mowing of private property in the city, and so council will be further investigating that and taking appropriate action after we've had a chance to do some additional homework on that. Item A4 had to deal with the event center and the rental fees for the event center. Item A5 had to do with electric vehicle charging stations, and the city is going to move to start charging for the use of those vehicle charging stations. So a rate will be determined, and we should have information on that shortly. Item A6 had to do with an update on the National Pickleball Tournament that is coming to Farmers Branch November 5th through the 12th. It's going to be at Brookhaven Country Club. In addition to the pickleball tournament, there will be 3 concerts, a fireworks show, a drone show. More information can be found out about this event at usapickleball.org/nationals. Item A7 dealt with aggressive dogs. Aggressive dogs continue to be an issue here in the city, and so Animal Services is looking for additional direction on how to move forward with what is a dangerous dog and how quickly they become dangerous in the event that they are classified that way. There are pretty substantial penalties and requirements if you have a dangerous dog. So let me remind everybody, all outside dogs need to be on a leash. Don't let them run loose. Item A8 dealt with home occupation regulations, and this was mainly to discuss home-based businesses and the fact that some businesses run into blocking traffic on street, blocking traffic in alleyways, large numbers of people coming and going. So we do have regulations against that. We will be coming out with a more up-to-date policy in regards to that at some point in the future. And as a reminder here, item A9, which is to discuss future agenda items, will be discussed down here. It was not discussed upstairs. It will be discussed down here at the end of our regular agenda items. So A9 will be discussed after J5 for those following along. And that is what we covered on study session. Next up is our consent agenda, and item H2 was tabled from this evening's discussion. So, Council, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda less item H2.
Mayor, I motion we approve the consent agenda with the modification of removing item H2.
Very good.
Mayor, I second that motion.
Very good, thank you. We have motion and second. Council members, if you would, please indicate your vote. We could do a show of hands. Absolutely. Okay, let's do a show of hands. All those in favor? Motion is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to our public hearing. Next up is item I1, conduct a public hearing and consider adopting ordinance number 3816, accepting and approving a service and assessment plan and townhome site direct improvement assessment role for the Mercer Crossing Public Improvement District, making a finding of special benefit to the property in the townhome site of the district and establishing a lien on such property within the townhome site of the district, levying assessments against property within the townhome site of the district, and establishing a lien on such property, providing for the method of assessment and the payment of the assessments in accordance with Chapter 372 of Texas Local Government Code, and as amended, and take appropriate action.
That's a long one.
Yes. I'm taking a breath.
Council, Mayor, Jamie Zimmerman, Director of Finance. So we started this process about a couple of months ago, where this is just following with the council's direction. And this was actually started by the residents in Mercer's Crossing and wanting to change what was slotted as an amphitheater, and it is being changed to 69 townhomes. So part of that process is we have gotten, on June 20th, we got the direction from council where we just talked about on those 69 townhomes. On July 18th, we reviewed the preliminary service assessment plan, the SAP, with the cost determination resolution. Third step we completed on July 30th, where we publicized the public hearing. And now we're at step 4, August 15th, and conducting a public hearing and then approval of the final updated service assessment plan. So just kind of as a refresh, this is the area where we had the amphitheater planned, and then to the right is your 69 townhome. And in putting the infrastructure in place for these 69 townhomes, the developer will incur costs that exceed $1.6 million. But in moving these 69 townhomes to the same additional levy as existing townhomes, it will only create a amount of $679,000, which will be reimbursed to the developer. And this is showing that the 69 townhomes will be moved to where the existing townhomes are being levied. And that's the calculation on how it was determined. The additional capacity will create $679,000 to be reimbursed to the developer. We will not cover the additional costs that the developer has incurred with putting in the infrastructure of paving, stormwater, water and sewer. And I believe a representative from the developer is here to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to open it up for questions.
Council, any questions? Councilman Merrick?
Tammy, thank you for the overview. Could you tell me if we did not create these 69 into the same classification, what would be the result?
The overall PID assessments would decrease for everyone that's in Mercer Crossing.
Okay. And there was discussion in the June study session where the cost of the infrastructure was deemed more expensive for for the improvements than for the amphitheater.
Correct.
And do we know what that differential is?
There was no infrastructure underneath the
Correct.
amphitheater.
They did not build an amphitheater.
Correct.
That's correct. So
Correct.
the question comes down, and maybe it's more for the applicant.
Dwayne, can you come and answer some of the questions on the infrastructure costs that had to be put in with the 69 townhomes.
Dwayne Brignac, 1800 Valley View Lane. So the amphitheater site did benefit from infrastructure that was getting put in place. It had an assessment of roughly $4,000 and something dollars, okay, for that site. Now, what we're proposing with the additional change in the use from amphitheater to the townhome site requires obviously more infrastructure for the connections for those townhomes. And so all we're trying to do here is, since we worked with the city to come up with a different land plan to satisfy the citizens and the city, that we recoup some of our costs to make the townhomes levy stagnant across the entire development.
Follow-up question, if I may.
Sure.
So the cost that you're requiring or pointing out, 1.6 million, is the cost to bring electricity and the streets and roads to the new townhomes, is that correct?
It's non-electricity, but it's your public infrastructure that will be dedicated over to the city, so your roadways, water, sewer, drainage.
Okay. There was also a discussion that this was citizen initiated. Could you elaborate a little bit on your perspective of what citizen initiated was?
Yeah, so going back through sort of the research and looking at past agendas, this was a citizen-led initiative where they had concerns over the amphitheater, traffic, noise, and all the nuisance that would come along with that site. So they requested that the city work with the developer and come up with an alternative for that site. And so it's kind of mutually agreed that the townhomes would be the best use for that site, and that's how we got to this spot now. There was a zoning change from the original concept plan that the city previously approved for this site.
Correct. So also, Centurion American Development Group had also planned other amphitheaters across your projects. Is that correct? You've had other proposed amphitheaters. Did you end up building any other amphitheater?
I'm not aware of that.
Not at this
I can't-
development.
Yeah,
No, I know. but
You're talking elsewhere?
Centurion had, I want to be clear that I'm not 100% sure that it's all citizen-led. There's a business venture here too, that it's not necessarily beneficial.
This was 100% citizen-led, because the plan originally included amphitheater and helipad and office building, and citizens spoke out vehemently, very loud, about not wanting the amphitheater or the helipad. They wanted something different, and there were town hall meetings out in Mercer to discuss just that issue.
Right. The point I'm getting at, Mayor, thank you for the clarification, is that Centurion American has proposed other amphitheaters in their projects across North Texas, and I don't believe Centurion has built an amphitheater.
Yes, sir. We proposed an amphitheater to be constructed in the,
Name
sorry.
and
My name
address.
is Brock Babb, asset manager for Centurion American, 1800 Valley View Lane, Farmers Branch, 75234. We proposed a amphitheater to be constructed in the Flower Mound Riverwalk development, and that has been constructed to date.
There was also one, I believe, in the Lancaster development that hasn't occurred either.
Lancaster development, I believe, are you talking about Mountain Creek?
I believe that's
Yes,
the
sir.
name.
We haven't started construction into that development yet on our parcels that we own. There have been parcels that have been constructed that are part of that overall master plan community, but not constrained by us. But anything that Centurion's touched, no, we have not started development on that.
Is it true that the president of Centurion believes that an amphitheater is not a good investment now?
I can't speak to what he personally believes. I know we are ready, willing, and able to construct this amphitheater on site, and it just wasn't the right fit for the community. And, our best intentions to make sure our clients, the residents who live there, are taken care of, they're heard, they're happy, and they decided not to construct this, so
I
we
understand.
decided to abide.
And the process was executed. I understand that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that clarification. All right. Mayor, I may have additional questions as we progress.
Okay, that's fine. Councilman Jackson?
No questions at the time, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
No questions at this time.
Councilman Roman?
I'm just curious to see how far along you guys have progressed in that project. We have been told originally that there's the residents there. I live across, well, not across the street. I live down the road from where this project is, and many residents have coined it Mount Mercer.
Yeah, I was about
And originally, we were told that it was going to take 3 weeks for the dirt to come down, then it was a month, then it was 3 months, and here we are at the 6-month period. And we haven't received any clear indication as to where we are on the project, and if we're being good partners with you to ensure that you get a partial reimbursement on this project, albeit it was a citizen-led endeavor, we need you guys to be good partners as well and move that project along.
Absolutely. So again, thank y'all. And I wasn't aware of the first question was 6 months ago when they asked and someone said 30 days. If it was, believe me, we probably anticipated it to be that. I know that we had some delays in terms of funding, and then we got flagged with the inspection fees that are due for whenever before you start utilities, we had to pay that fee. So we got slow with a lot of our lending at the very beginning, but now that we're fully funded, it's progressing rapidly. We have mobilized back in there. It was my discussion with the contractor that when you first get in there to start utilities, first thing is you take down Mount Farmers Branch or whatever, Mount Mercer Crossing, whatever they're calling it. We have had some staking issues in the field. Originally, the construction plan was to lose all of that dirt on site by raising off the exterior boundaries with the lake, who's managed by a different entity, about raising up the walls so that it's higher slopes, and then in the pocket park on the south to create berms to lose a lot of that dirt. Staking issues have shown that I'm not going to be able to do that, so I'm contracting another third-party contractor to haul out the excess dirt because I can only lose about 3,560 yards, and I believe the last report was around 8,200 yards, so I got to haul out the delta between those two. It's just taking a little bit longer than we anticipate on getting that contractor lined out, but they are about to start moving the first 3,600 and change dirt over to that southern section this week. I don't have an exact date on when I'm going to get rid of the other 4,000 and change, but it'll be a lot less of an eyesore. But it may take me a couple weeks to get rolling on moving that dirt out of there. But it has been progressing. We're not trying to slow play it. It's just unfortunate, unforeseen circumstances arose.
Right. I appreciate the response, and understandably, this has been, from the residents' perspective, has been a point of contention for quite some time because they didn't want the amphitheater. Now we have townhomes and a nice park that will go in that area. So people's eyes have been on it for some time, and they're wondering what's going on. So
They're excited about it. They want to get it done, and then they see that it's just sitting there with a large amount of dirt that they weren't envisioning. 100% agree with them. I get it.
So I just want to make sure that you guys know that I'm probably under the same amount of pressure as you guys are to make this happen. So any expedition or any expedited any way you guys can expedite it is greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, our online portal's getting hammered pretty good on questions about the dirt. So I want it gone as quick as anyone, and we want to get this project finished and completed so that we can add more residents to Farmers Branch and they can be happy with Mercer Crossing because it really is a special development. And another thing I know that y'all been pointed with, the Mercer Crossing Kensington Amenity Center, we started doing the pavers today. We'll be done with that within 60 days, so the residences in Kensington can have that additional amenity center finished, and then they can enjoy it hopefully next summer and enjoy some sun.
Thank you. That's it for now.
Councilman Baird?
Yeah, just for clarity, I couldn't understand you back on the amphitheater thing. Did you say you have or have not built one in Flower Mound?
We did at the
You did?
Riverwalk subdivision.
Okay, I just didn't understand you. Thank you.
Yes,
That was it.
Any other questions? Councilman Mayor?
Yes, during the June 20th meeting, you were present. There was also another representative from, I guess, a Centurion with you. Could you identify who was with you that particular day that spoke at the podium? Yes.
Oh, given the presentation that day
Yes.
and talked, it was Kirk Wilson with T. Wilson.
T. Wilson.
Yes, we're the financial consultants to the developer on these projects.
And so he has a vested interest in CADG?
He does not. No,
He does not.
no. We're a consultant.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Any further questions? Hey, I'd just like to say, especially as your Centurion representative standing before us, the developer, I think, really went probably above and beyond in some respects to accommodate residents out there. Being a part of town hall meetings to decide what do people really want out there. And so when it was finally said and done, the townhome seemed to be the next best solution. He was willing and prepared to change his plan to do that after all the money that was spent on engineering and everything that they had done to present the amphitheater project and moving in that one direction and then having to shift and then sort of re-engineer his whole project. So thank you. I can't wait to see townhomes done. Get rid of the dirt.
Yes, sir.
ASAP. Okay. Council, any further discussion on this? This item is marked for action. It is a public hearing. I do not have anybody signed up to speak. So with that, if you would, please, I need a motion on this item. Motion to close public hearing and motion.
We're on manual still. The devices are being reset upstairs. Yes.
Okay, didn't even notice that. Okay. Do I have a motion? Close
Yes,
public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing and adopt ordinance number 3816.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and second to adopt ordinance number 3816. All in favor? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3. All opposed? 2. Motion passes 3-2. Next up are regular agenda items. Item J1 has been tabled to a future date. We're going to be taking a tour of the Intech facility on Thursday, so we're going to wait on having that discussion and presentation. So next up will be item J2, consider approving a motion to place a proposal to consider adopting a maximum property tax rate of 0.573559 cents on the City Council agenda of September 19th, 2023, and schedule a public hearing on the proposed maximum property tax rate for September 19th, 2023. Both meetings will be held at 6 p.m. at the City of Farmers Branch, City Hall, Council Chambers, located at 13,000 William Dodson Parkway, Farmers Branch, Texas 75234, and take appropriate action.
Mayor, Council, I haven't left. Tammy Zimmerman, Director of Finance. Okay, so we're going to be talking a lot about tax rates in the next 2 months and some complicated terminology. The Texas Truth in Taxation law requires a number of public notices to inform the taxpayers about their local property taxes. And in the previous study session, I mentioned there was the first page of our proposed budget was some of the calculations that we're required to publicize. And there's in the back appendix of our proposed budget, the T&T calculation, the truth in taxation calculation. So tonight, we have to go and propose the maximum. Now, what we proposed in our budget is less than the maximum. We're proposing a tax rate decrease of 2 cents, which is the largest in 40 years. and we'll put it at 0.569. We have already a homestead exemption of 20%, which is the maximum, and we increased previously, last budget cycle, an increase to our senior and disabled exemption to $100,000. So I've got below on this slide kind of a comparison of what our M&O rate and our INS rate, again, some kind of terminology that's given with the Texas state laws. And the M&O represents your maintenance and operations, and your INS is your interest in sinking or your debt. So there's some good property tax relief coming. I don't know if you've seen in the news, but the previous legislative session has proposed using their budget surplus from their excess sales tax and reducing the school district rates and increasing their homestead exemptions. And part of that is going on in November election. But I'm going to kind of refer back to, I believe most every budget cycle, there's a slide that's shown of the dollar bill that represents what you pay in your dollar of property tax. Almost 50% is your school district. A quarter is Farmers Branch. So at the town hall on August 29th, I'll be bringing forth some presentations, if the council so request, of what the average Farmers Branch homeowner will be getting in tax relief from, again, these are the 4 organizations that collect all of property tax in Dallas County. So Dallas College is increasing their exemption. Parkland Hospital is increasing their exemption. I just mentioned the school district, and Farmers Branch is having a 2-cent reduction. So this TNT, Truth in Taxation Law, tonight it requires the council to be a little bit uncomfortable because I'm going to need somebody to make a motion to adopt the maximum tax rate. That is not what we are proposing in our budget. And the maximum is the voter approval tax rate with unused increment at 0.573559. So what is a voter approval tax rate? I'm going to kind of quickly go through some of this terminology. Again, I apologize if we're going to abbreviate because it's a long word. So your VATR, voter approval tax rate, it includes no new revenue, meaning it's the rate that we would charge to get the same amount of revenue we did last year, plus 3.5%. So that, if you go over the voter approval tax rate, you have to take it to an election. What is an unused increment? Well, back in 2020, when the Tax Relief Act was put in place, we had a differential. It actually represents a 3-year rolling sum of the difference from the adopted actual tax rate less the voter approval tax rate. So we got an increment of about 11 cents. We've been using, and most cities have, been using that increment to slowly ease in where we were capped at 8% growth, and now we have to go down to 3.5%. So it's a slow ease into that. And we are also showing what that no new revenue tax rate, NNR, is 0.469818, and the voter approval tax rate without the unused increment is 0.516831. So you'll see all of this publicized in notices. And again, with all the new terminology, the M&O rate, if you think of it with your personal budget, it's going to be your maintenance and operations, the things that take care of your house, your mortgage, well, not your mortgage, but any of your food you're spending. Your INS rate is your interest and sinking rate, which is your debt. So do we have any questions?
Council, any questions? Councilman Merritt?
Tammy, thank you for the overview. Could you go back to the slide where you had the all four rates? Yes, here. And you mentioned the incremental. Could you clarify how much incremental that we're utilizing in this calendar year?
Sure. So we started out in 2020 with about 11 cents in our unused increment. And 2021, with that budget year, we used about 2.5 cents, a little over that. And 2022, we used about a little over 3 cents. And now in this proposed budget, we're going to utilize about 5 cents. And that'll pretty much zero it out. We'll have 0.004 left, but there is kind of a discrepancy in the calculation of the unused increment between Dallas County and the Texas Comptroller. So regardless, it rolls off in 3 years.
Correct. Regardless, it rolls off. Thank you for the clarity. I think it's very important to know that it is available to us and it does roll off. And so it's super important. It's a discount, if you will. It's beneficial to the city and therefore it's being utilized to address this. So thank you for that clarification.
And what I didn't mention was, and we used every tool in order to get the same type of quality services with dealing with record high inflation, staff shortages, supply chain issues, and getting some things taken care of with our infrastructure, with our, avoiding debt issuance, keeping that low debt ratio.
Councilman Roman?
Nope,
Nope.
for me.
Okay. Councilman Jackson? Councilwoman? No? Okay. Very good. Do not have anybody signed up to speak to this issue, so I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll be brave and do a motion to approve considering the adoption of a maximum property tax rate of 0.57359 on the city council agenda for September. Oh, I apologize. I did this once before and I messed that number up, but I was trying to read it very carefully.
That's okay.
I'll start again. I'll make a motion to approve considering the adoption of a maximum property tax rate of 0.57359 on the city council agenda for September 19th, 2023, and scheduling a public hearing on the proposed maximum property tax rate for September 19th, 2023. Both meetings will be held at 6 p.m. at the City of Farmers Branch City Hall Council Chambers located at 13,000 William Dodson Parkway, Farmers Branch, Texas 75234.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mayor, I'll second that.
Very good. We'll have a roll call vote. Councilman Roman? Aye. Councilman Baird?
Aye.
I do? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is item J3, consider approving ordinance number 3817, repealing ordinance number 3324, amending the Code of Ordinances by repealing Division 4, City Marshal, Article 3, Chapter 28, and take appropriate action.
Mayor and Council, Tammy Zimmerman, Director of Finance. I'm going to request Chief McCoy come up as my co-collaborator on this agenda item. Okay, you're this way. Okay, so the adoption of the, let me put this into, the court martial was in 2015. And what we're doing tonight is we're not dissolving the marshal. We're not requesting dissolving of the marshal program. What we're doing is requesting a realignment. And now it is under the court, which is under finance, and we're requesting that it be moved over to the police department for certain benefits to both of the departments. And I think it will be a benefit. We've talked about it. We've had several meetings. Currently, we have 2 full-time marshals, and we have a part-time bailiff in the court department. And this was previously set up in 2015 in order to clear outstanding warrants. And what they do is they do that. They also ensure the court security, and they do transfers for any warrant arrest. They will perform the same similar roles under a separate division in the police department, but it provides more resources for technology, training, and staffing. They're going to be able to assist the patrol officers and staying in service with using the marshals for expanding on their transfers for the jail. And then it ensures we have liability protection for the city. They are under the same standard operating procedures as the police department. They are sworn officers. So currently you have civilians that are over sworn officers. It's not the best alignment, and so that's why we're proposing repealing the marshal ordinance. And Kevin, if you wanted to say anything in addition to it.
So I'll add a few things, Mayor and Council. Kevin McCoy, Chief of Police. We've been working with Tammy in Finance and the City Manager on this transition for the last couple of months, and we've identified a couple of potential concerns with the current setup as it comes to supervision, training, management policies that we can bring better into alignment to put the city in a better position from a liability standpoint. From as far as the day-to-day goes for what the marshals do, it's going to look very similar to what they're doing now. Their primary responsibility will still be court security. They'll still take care of warrants and warrant pickups and transfers. They'll help the police department out with some of our transfers out of the jail when they need to go out or go to the hospital to keep our officers free so they can spend more time on the street. So a lot of the job responsibilities will stay the same. It adds more structure, puts them under our policy systems, which are, we're a state certified, state recognized agency, so it brings them under those policies and gives us a system to track their training, be sure that they're staying contemporary with the industry, that they've got the best equipment, and they need some upgrades in their equipment, and we'll handle all that as they come over to our department. Short presentation.
So,
Do you all have any questions?
sure, I do. So, Chief, will the marshals, in their new realignment, will they have body cameras?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Will they have radar in their vehicles?
So they will. They'll get fully outfitted patrol cars, which they don't have currently, but we're going to outfit their cars. Assistant Chief Siegel was working on that as part of this transition with the new radars and the new equipment, the new cameras that council authorized a month or so ago. So they'll have cameras added to their cars. They'll have radars added to their cars. We're working on getting radios, portable radios. So their cars will look like the rest of the Farmers Branch Police Department cars. They'll be identical and outfitted very similar. And that's, you won't really, from the outside, you won't be able to tell them apart from a normal patrol car.
Very good. Councilman Jackson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Tammy. Reading through the materials, this seemed to me like a complete no-brainer, but I'm trying to understand back in 2015, when these court marshals were put under the Finance Department, what was the benefit to doing that then? Realizing that none of us were here probably back, well, Pete might have been here, but
I was here, and I'm not sure, I'm not sure what the benefit was, other than the personalities involved in management had thought that was the best alignment at the time. And so you end up having non-sworn, supervising sworn personnel, which is kind of an awkward situation, as you can imagine. And so based on the changes in personnel here, it seemed like this was the best way to accomplish the tasks that we needed, both making sure they were in alignment with all the right standards, were supervised, and provide the support to the court.
Right, yeah, and that's the conclusion I came to. I was just trying to figure out what am I missing from 2015, but
My understanding historically is they had been under the police department, and then in 15, they were pulled and put under finance.
Okay.
So we're just realigning them back to probably where they should have been the entire time.
right, okay, thank you.
But I'm not sure exactly why.
Councilman Merritt?
Thank you, Mayor. This question's more perhaps for Ben, and I'm sorry, thank you for your information. Ben, you know we had this discussion in our one-on-one on Friday. This particular ordinance does not appear in the Muni Code as far as if an individual goes out at this moment and looks for Division 4 and try to find this particular clause, it's not there. So could you help me understand what fumble we may have had in
that word?
this approach?
So there's two fumbles here. So the first fumble was it wasn't put in the Muni Code. That happened sometime last year. There were some things that were missed. Stacy's team was made aware of it. It's a new team. They're going back and went and audited everything, found several that were missing, and it's being fixed as we speak. Many of these predate my city secretary and her team, so they're correcting, again, fumbles of the past. And then the fumble of the past here is getting the right alignment in place with the team that's operationally makes sense. There's so many wins in this alignment, it seems like a no-brainer. And so when we all talked about it, that's why you see this being presented in this fashion, moving the marshals to the right location to achieve the goal, which is to reduce the number of warrants. I believe we started with 17,000 when this started. We're currently at 22. We've gone the wrong direction. So the police department with the crime analyst and the team he has and making these positions into officers, there's just too many benefits to ignore. And it's a win-win. So instead of fumble, we're now recovering those and going for the wins.
I understand, and I think it's very important that operationally we talk about how we make these changes in the ordinances, and therefore I, sitting in this chair, expect those ordinances to make themselves into the Muni Code to be public record. And this is a situation where I went to look and said, well, that's an interesting clause. Let me go look for it. And I couldn't even find it, and because it wasn't there. And so and I'm sitting here, and I know if anyone in the audience or watching on television did the same thing, like, what are they doing? And it didn't make sense. And so I think it's very important that we make sure that we keep our ordering, if you will, and our operations as top-notch as you can. And I know you have plans, and I know Stacy, as the city secretary, is doing that yeoman's job in that regard. So anyway, thank you for that clarification. And I think this does make sense. Chief, is there any, following up on another question, is there any, will they'll still be called marshals, or will they change their title to be officer? Help me understand that.
So they will become officers. So they will become full-fledged Farmers Branch police officers. So same uniform, same equipment, same vehicles. They'll just be in a different division. So we're going to create a court division that'll be assigned to the lieutenant that's currently assigned over the jail and the evidence section. So they'll fall underneath his section of the department. So for all intents and purposes, on a day-to-day basis, they are just Farmers Branch police officers.
Thank you for the clarification, Chief. Thank you. No further questions, Mayor.
All righty. No further questions. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. We don't have anybody signed up to speak to this. This item is marked for action. I'll entertain motion.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 3817 as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
We have motion and second. Thank you. If you would. We're not working yet? We are? Okay. We'll see if our system works. So if you would, please indicate your vote. Oh,
Manual.
Councilman Merritt didn't have a...
Still manual.
Manual. Okay, I'm sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Motion is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is item J4, consider approving resolution 2023-174, naming the event center and take appropriate action.
Good evening, Council. Mr. Mayor, Lynette Hill, Event Center Manager. Again, I thank you guys for the opportunity to address you this evening to review the outcome of the community survey to help in the naming of the event center. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone who participated in the survey. We received a remarkable number of responses indicating a strong interest and engagement from our residents. Second, I'd like to thank the Historical Preservation and Restoration Board for their steadfast commitment in narrowing down the selection to those names that are being presented today. Just a little background on the survey. As you guys know, y'all requested the survey, and we put that out there from July 25th through the 31st. We sent out 1,100 email addresses via Polko, and the link is shown there. And it was also posted on Facebook and Instagram, and you can see an example of that to the right. We received over 500 responses. And there were two themes that came back very loud and clear. The first one was people were very excited and very enthused about the visuals of the event center. We included the exterior as well as interior renderings. The other one was a strong desire to name the event center after natural surroundings or something involving the city's history. So factors that were considered in regard to that, does the suggested name connect with the history or the geography? Like I said, those two themes were very loud and clear from the answers that we received in the survey. The other one, is it easy to say? We don't want something that's going to be a real tongue twister. Will it appeal to our target audience, our 20s to 40-year-olds who are going to be booking these big celebrations and weddings? Does it sound like a place that you would want to book an upscale event? Is the name short enough to remember, and will it fit on one line? And also, too, when marketing the venue, how's that name going to rank on Google? And finally, is there a URL that'll be available for us? So one thing that we did want to point out, that to prevent unnecessary repetition, and you'll see an example of that here in just a moment, that using Farmers Branch or Farmers Branch Historical Park in the actual name of the venue would create one big problem, and that would be redundancy. So I've got two samples of invitations, and as you can see on the left, and both the left and the right have the same address information for the venue. What happens is if you put Farmers Branch in the actual name of the venue, as this example shows, it's Farmers Branch Event Center at the Farmers Branch Historical Park on Farmers Branch Lane in Farmers Branch, Texas. It gets a little redundant. So when you use an example of the invitation on the right, it's the same information, but it's in a smaller piece of real estate on that invitation. So another example of that redundancy is if you go on to something like Wedding Wire, a website that's used very popular like The Knot or any of the other websites for brides and event planners. What they'll normally do is they post the name of the venue, first line, followed by the city and state where that venue is located. Then usually there is some sort of a descriptor paragraph under that that also lists city-state location. So there again, as you can see by the arrows, you also have that redundancy factor. And it doesn't really come out until you actually see it. And then you're like, oh my goodness. So we have the two names that came through after sitting down, going over all of this, all the 500 suggestions, as well as sitting down with the Historical Preservation and Restoration Board. The first one is Venue 27. And I've got that written out, both venue with a numerical 27 as well as completely spelled out. And what that does, why Venue 27? It pays homage to the 27 acres that house the historical park. While it embraces that legacy, it also has a contemporary trend of using the numbers with the name of the venue. And the other one is Venue 1946, which pays tribute to 1946, which is the year that Farmers Branch was incorporated as a city. So either one of those two names, we follow the example and the suggestions that were given forth by the survey. One pays tribute to geographical, the other pays tribute to the history. So at this time, if you have any questions, I respectfully ask that I'm going to put it in your hands and let y'all select the name for the new event center.
Sure. Council, anybody have questions? Councilman Merritt?
And thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question. Did either Venue 27 or Venue 1946 come from the residents or come through the survey process?
Yes, they did.
Okay, they did. All
Yes, they
right.
did.
All right, very good. Thank you for that clarification. No other questions at the moment.
Thank you. Councilman Jackson?
Mayor, thank you. And Mayor, I don't have any questions. I just, if we could go back one slide, Lynn, and look at the two names again. There are two names being presented, but the actual resolution is using Venue 27. So I don't know if this is more of a question maybe for Ben or Pete. We're choosing a name tonight, but the resolution already has a name chosen, or is that just to fill in space?
So I was inquiring myself. We had prepared two versions of the resolution, so whatever name you want, we can put in the resolution tonight.
Okay, so there's
So
still a,
don't
there's
worry
still
about
a
the
choice.
paperwork.
Okay.
Come up with a name and we'll fix it.
Okay, so my thoughts on it are, I think Venue 27 sounds trendy and all, but we don't know that the historical park will always be 27 acres. Maybe we buy more land and make it bigger.
Very true. Good point.
In my mind, sorry?
Historical Park, make a note. We may buy more land. Richard Jackson.
I'm cutting
Well,
off your
you
mic.
know, I will need to expand the event center at some point
Sure.
to handle the business. So
I'm just saying, 1946 will never change.
this is true.
And that to me has more significance in my mind as a name for, for this, this venue. And so I personally would prefer 1946. But at this point, I'm just tired of talking about it. I want to get it built and get some weddings and some
Amen.
events going. But those are my thoughts on the name. I prefer Venue 1946.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Councilman Roman?
I prefer Venue 1946, that's it.
All right. Councilman Baird?
I don't especially like either of them, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think there's a better name out there. I hate to lock us in, but whatever the majority says up here, but I heard about these last Thursday, I think, and I've been mulling them, and neither of them have hit with me. But when they named the baseball park in Arlington, what'd they name it? The ballpark in Arlington, I thought that was a horrible name. And about 5 or 6 or 7 years later, I thought, it's a pretty good name.
It
So
makes sense.
what do I know?
Councilwoman?
I agree with Councilman Barrett. I guess as I looked through on what had gotten voted on, and the majority, it's like we did ask for that. But seeing your presentation, I get it, the redundancy. So if I had to choose between these two, it would be Venue 1946.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Good.
Okay. So I read through all the names,
Yes, sir.
and then I had a thought. 1946 doesn't do anything for me. Now, I'm an oddball, but I've also been in the event business. Not that that means anything. I'm in the advertising business. Again, my preference all along would have been to brand Farmers Branch. That's what we're here to do. Not here to brand people. I'm here to brand the city and promote the city. So I did a simple Google search to look up some history about Farmers Branch. Farmers Branch was first settled in 1850, according to online sources. 1850. People know that if they've done any homework on Farmers Branch, we were the first settlement in Dallas County. So I'm trying to think, why not take advantage of 1850? That dates back a long time. And look at an mid-1800 barn compared to a 1946 barn compared to a 2023 barn. But if we're trying to go for that type of cachet, if you will, to me, it just seemed to make more sense. Let's go back to when we were first settled. That's when our roots were set down. Now, I have not discussed this with anybody on council, nor the city manager, so I'm throwing that out there and want to see if anybody would even entertain considering that. But, and I hate to throw a wrench in everything, but I wasn't excited. And again, that's just me. And if I can't have Farmers Branch in the name, then I want something that's going to be, to me, a little more meaningful.
Fair enough.
So with that, I give you the floor.
Mayor, I also was not wowed by either of these two particular names. I think we also, in our nearby community on Beltline, we have a venue 4050. So, I mean, this naming schema has been used, and it's used relatively close to us. So I think I agree with the mayor that there needs to be some sort of, tie-in, 1946 or even 27. I get the purpose, but I think many people who submitted name recommendations here had a reason and a rationale for some of that. And I submitted one. I won't refer to it, but again, I'm not bitter. I promise I'm not bitter. It just doesn't have a wow factor and a meaningful factor. I mean, it's a name. And I think we missed a little bit of that opportunity to brand, make it unique. So I'm struggling with, kind of, what do they always say, the lesser of two evils here. And then, of course, Councilman Baird makes a good presentation, if you will. We select a name, we live with it, it grows on us perhaps, and we can move forward. But, right now, I'm not wowed by either of these names.
There's always the barn. I don't even know what to say, Lynn. We've talked about this ad nauseum. I didn't know about Venue 4050. I just looked it up. And you're right. It's right there in Addison. It's very close. I wouldn't want our historical park and all of the effort that's been put into this particular building to be viewed as something close to that in name.
Right.
Totally appreciate the slide pointing out the redundancy. I was almost religious about what the mayor was talking about in branding Farmers Branch and our historical park, but when you see that written out on an invitation, so I don't know. I'm kind of backing off a little bit of Venue 1946. I think if it was Venue anything, I like the 1850. It carries a lot more weight to it, and the fact that Farmers Branch is that old, It says an awful lot, but I don't have anything creative at this point to add. Thank you.
So I'll get down here in just a second, but on the list here, there were a number of preferences for, oh gosh, I had it right here. Farmers Branch Event Center, and it said, keep it simple with name recognition. Now, that sort of goes back to your point, Farmers Branch Event Center in Farmers Branch,
At the historical.
on Farmers Branch Lane in Farmers Branch. Maybe we have to give it a different address, maybe put on Tom Field. I don't know. Or Ford Road, rather.
One event lane.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Councilwoman, did you have a comment? Okay. Councilman Roman.
I think, you know, venue 1946, venue 1850, 40, 30, whatever, you know, I think either one provides recognition. I think if I were to see a specific date, I would want to know the historical background or the reason for it. It would, in some way that is marketing Farmers Branch. And, you know, we are beating this like a dead horse. Let's just call it what it is. You know, I recognize that this is a really important decision, but I think we have done everything that, the staff has done everything that we've asked them to. We've had them come back. We've had a survey done. We've had the board go back and talk about it again, and they provided 2 recommendations, which I think both of them would be appealing to me. And if it's more satisfactory to have a different year, then that's fine, you know, but I think we've come to a point where we either need to make a decision or we need to table it.
Councilman Baird.
I'd recommend tabling it, but before we go on, the thought I had was if we just called it Venue Farmers Branch at the Historical Park, everybody's going to know it's the Farmers Branch Historical Park, so we've taken out one of the redundancies there at least. Just simply call it the venue at Farmers Branch, or Venue Farmers Branch. I just think the number thing, you mentioned that it was kind of trendy. I'm not sure that's exactly the word you used, but venues with numbers. I think that might bite us down the line 10 years, you know. What was it, 10 or 15 years ago, there were lots of bands, Blink 182, and, you know, we could get a long list of band names, let's say, with numbers in them, and now they're still popular, but that's not the trend anymore. And so I would move that we table it for another time.
If I may, can Deputy City Manager Mike Mashburn, you've been part of this for the whole journey. Would you come up here and shed a little bit of light on us? I know you're looking for some direction, so if you could provide some insight from your perspective, that would be very much appreciated.
Hi, Deputy City Manager Mike Mashburn. We can call it whatever you want. We just need a name tonight so we can book it and make money.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Listen, and names are subjective, just like art. I could look at all 500 and hate all of them. In fact, I think we have a couple marketing experts. They had some great names. I love it. So
If you use mine, you're going to have to.
can I give you a few more to suggest? Well, anybody got a place to be or just hang out for a minute?
I moved for Mashburn Meadows.
Well,
Ben had a nice one, Origin 1850. It's actually 1842 was when we settled, so might need to tweak that just a little bit. But I liked your idea, that advertising mine, that was perfect. So something along those lines would be wonderful.
Mike, let me ask you a question. The log cabins that were taken out, they're going to be brought back, right?
Yes.
Do we know history-wise when those were erected?
Ooh, I'd have to look it up, not off the top of my head,
Okay.
but yeah.
Not that it matters, but they were probably in the 1800s.
The original one.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, okay. Well, I agree that we need to get this over and done with so we can move on and actually book some business. So
Yeah, and just to add a little bit of clarity to the business part, so contractually, we're trying to be done, or they're supposed to be done by the end of April. We're ahead of schedule right now. So in a perfect world with weather, please hang out.
End of August.
April.
You said April.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's
Oh,
moving
April.
quick. Yeah, so we may beat that and possibly January if everything breaks right. So we're really behind the 8 ball on booking this venue. So we're just waiting on a name. I think we got pricing settled earlier today, just to get the website up and going and all the collateral out. So not to put you all under more pressure, but.
So you said 1842, right, Mike? Okay. Agree to that?
I don't follow.
Looking at, if we look at the list, didn't the barn come up with the most 9, if I read that correctly? Lynn, is that correct, that the barn came up with 9 votes?
Approximately.
Where's the 1842? Where's the 1946 and the 1842? All right. Council, please. Does anybody
Drum roll, please.
want, what was it?
Drum roll, please.
Someone make a motion.
Just need a motion.
Somebody make
All
a
right.
motion. Go ahead. Make
So
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to call the event center venue 1843.
43,
42?
50.
1842. 1850.
Oh.
What date is it?
1842.
1842.
Yes, sir.
So to clarify, the original settlement of Farmers Branch was 1842. Is that correct, Mike?
Okay.
Okay. And your motion is venue 1842. I'll second the motion.
We have a motion for venue 1842. We have a second by Councilman Jackson. All in favor of venue 1842?
And approving a resolution that says that. And approving the resolution.
Yes. Okay, show of hands, please. 1, 2, 3. All opposed? 2. The motion passes 3-2.
Thank you, everyone.
Maybe we can reserve the right at a future date to change. Next up is item J5. Consider approving ordinance number 3796, amending Chapter 78 and Chapter 26, requiring short-term rental listing services to collect and remit hotel occupancy taxes and to require up-to-date payments before the approval of a short-term rental license application and take appropriate action.
Hello again, Council. I'm the Director of Neighborhood Services, Leo Bonanno. Feel free to call me Leo, Leonardo, Leo 182. Any of those are fine. So,
What year were you born?
there are plenty more. I've got plenty of names.
Okay.
But I hope I can keep up with the last one. That's a tough act to follow.
Okay.
But we are here to talk about updating the tax code, which is Chapter 78, and we are going to talk about short-term rentals and how they are taxed and how we are collecting or sometimes not collecting the taxes that were due and a way to address that. Very quickly, if you've ever used a short-term rental online or even booked a hotel online, the process is very simple. You find where you want to stay. In the case of short-term rentals, Airbnb and VRBO are the big players. Okay, so that tends to be folks' first stop for looking for short-term rentals. You, of course, pay for the term that for your visit to this home or the rent. Some of the websites call them. The website Airbnb, for example, takes the renter's money, subtracts their fee, and then hands the rest off to the property owner. And then at the end of the month, presumably the short-term rental homeowner self-reports to the city what they have, the revenue they've accrued for the month prior. And they pay hotel taxes based on that number. And you'll notice that self-report is bold and an underline because we're going to talk about that a little bit too. So that's how the process is supposed to work, but there are some inherent problems with the process. It is sometimes a genuine mistake. Some owners sometimes just forget to pay their taxes. It's not something everyone does on a regular basis, so sometimes folks just forget. They don't know that they're required to pay their taxes, even though through the process of registering, you are reminded multiple times. In fact, when short-term rentals are approved, I personally send an email to that person reminding them that they are required to pay taxes. And still it slips past some people. And then, of course, the whole system of self-reporting can allow for errors of some kind, underreporting, not reporting, and so on. And so these things are just inherent with the process and humans being humans. So we came up with a solution to try and resolve some of this. And the solution we had was this. If we could get the big players like Airbnb and VRBO to collect our hotel taxes at the point of the transaction, just like every hotel does, we would not have to worry about chasing missing taxes. The owners wouldn't have to worry about forgetting and getting penalized, because they do get penalized, if you forget to pay your taxes. So it all happens at that kind of point of sale, point of transaction. So right now the tax code requires the owners of short-term rentals pay their taxes. Code enforcement, and actually I brought her with me today. You'll see Brittany Avila, who's our hero today, and I'll explain why. But she is one of our newer code officers. Her anniversary is this month. But when it says code enforcement contacted, that was Inspector Avila. It is not easy to contact these big companies and track down legal personnel and do things like this. And Brittany managed to do it. And so Brittany tracked down Airbnb and VRBO and got a hold of the big wigs over there in their legal department and said, hey, we'd like you to collect our taxes when you do these transactions and then just send them to us. And surprisingly, they said that they would. However, they will do it if they're forced to do it. Which is essentially in the law. So we sent them a copy of our existing law, and of course they came back with, well, your law says the owner has to pay, and we're not the owner, so we're not going to pay. We're not going to provide this service to you, but if you make it required, we will cooperate. And so that's where we find ourselves here tonight. Is we have created, thanks to our legal folks, Mr. Smith especially, we created a definition in the tax code for a short-term rental listing service, which would be these online websites, all of them that you can think of. And you can see the definition up there. I won't read it to you, but it's essentially just these online formats, these platforms. And by creating this new term, we then tweak the tax code to say owners and or the short-term listing agents have to pay us. And so that requirement slips in various places in the ordinance, and now they would be required to pay us. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Smith even added that if you do not pay us, what you're required to take from the owner and give to the city. If you do not do that, you became liable for the taxes that were owed. So it could be a penalty in their direction. So that's where we decided to go. It's a fairly simple fix. It's a term and a few line changes. The tax code, as it says now, it mainly talks about hotels and motels. So we just added a definition and then added short-term rental services to it. So it seems simple enough. Also, again, Chapter 78 is the tax code. Well, Chapter 26 is our short-term rental listing regulations in the business code. And so we made some changes there as well. And the one paragraph that we changed, which you can see right there, is that if you apply for your short-term rental license and we find out that you are not up to date on your taxes, because whether or not you have a license, you still need to pay those taxes. You're still an STR even if you don't have a license. So if you apply and it's determined that you have not come up to date and been paying your taxes, your license can be withheld, or denied, I should say. Continuing to operate a short-term rental when your license has been denied is a violation. And so code officers can cite those folks. We can revoke COs. We've had similar discussions recently about that. They can be fined, and regardless, you still owe your taxes. So penalties can grow if folks don't want to cooperate. So that's really all we're talking about tonight, is these small amendments in two places to encourage Airbnb and VRBO and all the others to help us in collecting the taxes that we're due, that the citizens are due. So with that, what questions can I help with?
So I want to ask you, the VRBOs and the Airbnbs, for example, are they collecting for other municipalities?
They are if they're being made to.
Okay.
Yes.
And do they take a fee from what is owed?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay.
But our tax code, like our hotel motel tax is 7%.
Yep.
So our code says that if you are the collector of taxes, of hotel taxes, so they're the middleman between the seller, the renter and the city, they get to keep 1% of that 7%.
I would say if we couldn't change that, because let them increase their fee to the owner of the property instead of the city having to give up dollars, number one. And that way it becomes more advantageous to us when we get our full tax, less any discount. The other thing is for individuals who are listing their home themselves or whatever they have, and trying to rent it themselves without going through a service, we still need a means to be able to track those people, hunt them down, and take appropriate action.
We do have one on our list right now that is not listed on any professional service. The lady that owns it has her own website and advertises it for rent. She does have a license. She pays her taxes. Are there others out there? Perhaps so. She may be using her professional contacts as a realtor or a property manager to get the word out. But there's definitely at least one in our town that does not advertise on any of these big players, but she's still licensed. So.
The other thing that I would hope that you did, we did this once before, is we turned in a list of properties to DCAD to lose their homestead exemption. And that's pretty serious business when you do that. I believe we turned in 53 properties at one time that all lost their homestead exemption because their home site was a business and not a homestead. So
we actually do that. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No. I do that with short-term rentals and single-family rentals too. I found about 15 to 20% are claiming homestead improperly. Now, the one thing that is important to remember is that you can list your house as a short-term rental and still maintain your homestead legally. If you're just going out of town and choose to list your primary residence as an STR for 2 weeks or a month, that's probably not enough to kill your homestead. But we report them, and then DCAD does their investigation. But we do report them. So I've done that personally on many of them.
Well, and this sort of ties into what we're going to be faced with in November with people who have said that they want to possibly rent their homes during the pickleball tournament. They need to know that they need to submit application and go through the whole process in order to be able to do that.
Yes, that's totally correct.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councilman Jackson.
Thank you, Leo 182. Section 78-79 in the code says that the listing agent or the listing service can deduct from the person's payment to the city as reimbursement to collect the tax, right? And so that's where you're saying our tax rate's 7%,
Yes.
and they can take, the listing service can take 1%, which means we get 6.
No. Fair question. If we use easy numbers, so let's say that we are owed $100 in tax, there's a sale of $100, a rent of $100. We are due $7, 7%, $7, right? Well, they get 1% of $7.
Okay, so
They get 1% of our tax. It's not a dollar.
70 cents.
Yeah. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
It does.
So it's not a massive amount.
Okay, understand, but still, we're getting a reduced amount.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in that example, which is a very simple example, they would get 7 cents,
Right.
1% of $7. But if you multiply that by however many sales occur in the town, I guess it could be substantial. So, but this
I'm
applies
just
to
thinking
hotels too, hotels and motels. Anyone that's collecting this kind of tax, this is already applying to them. This isn't unique to short-term rentals.
Okay, so the hotel's doing the same thing, so we're losing the same little haircut? Okay, all right, so this would be conforming to what our standard is. Okay, very good. Other services, other than the bigger ones, the Airbnb and the VRBOs, if we put this in our ordinance, are they made to comply, and how are we going to coordinate that messaging with them?
Yes, the ordinance does not mention any company names, so
Right.
if you're providing this service, you fall into this category. And so as we find these other companies, and I've seen a few, but they're not very common, we would just reach out to them and say, you're doing business in Farmers Branch, you need to start sending us taxes. And we'll see how that goes. Again, the big boys know how government works, and they'll typically play fair. A smaller company may drag their feet a little bit, and it might be that we get our legal department involved. But yes, it applies to any of them providing this service.
Okay. And last question, as it stands today, we do not have any short-term rental properties that are past due on their taxes. Is that correct?
I would say it is. I don't think I could tell you for sure at this moment. I did an audit several months ago, in about May, and I caught everybody up. We had some folks renew that had expired their licenses and stuff like that, but I have not done a full-fledged audit since then. Some of you know that I was out of the office for a
Right.
bit.
Sure.
So I'm hesitant to say yes, because I don't want to promise if I can't fulfill.
Okay.
But I can tell you that I believe most of them are fine. I've had personal conversations with these people and explained things. We've taken direct payments at the counter because they didn't know taxes were due, and they panicked and ran up here. So things definitely got better after the audit because I kind of laid down the law with these folks. But I don't think I could guarantee, honestly, that everybody's up to date right now. I wouldn't want to promise that.
Okay. But we're diligent about following up with these. You've
Oh,
got a
yes.
process in place.
Yes,
Okay.
in fact, we're
All
going to
right.
go ahead and assign this entire program to an officer and dedicate it to them. And we're talking about doing regular audits and things like that to keep track. It's not only about the tax dollars, but as you all probably know, short-term rentals have a string of regulations that go with them, minimum time period to stay and things like that. And I think that the entire property needs to be audited every so often. I want to see your taxes. I want to look at your ad. I want to make sure it's there, no parties, right? All that language. I want to audit your entire setup. I want to make sure the license is posted in that house because the law said it will be. So those things will help keep these folks in line. So my goal is to get something like that up and running. So, but the first step was doing my own audit to see where we were.
Right, and part of our permit fee that we charge pays a third party that does some of that work as well?
If I'm not mistaken, the fee that we collect just goes into the general fund.
Okay.
And then I budget the expense of this third party. They're
Right.
called host compliance. I
Right.
budget that every year as an expense.
Okay, but the point is, we do have a third party that's helping us run a tight ship around the STRs.
Yes, Yes, they do
Okay.
help. They do the research for us. You know, they help track these folks down. They track down the owners. So they actually take screenshots of their ads, because some folks will put up an ad and then once they rent it, they'll take it down and then they'll put it up and take it down. So this company takes screenshots so that we can tell when it was posted. So it does help us keep tabs on them.
Okay,
So,
excellent. Thank you, Leo.
Sure.
Councilman Merritt.
Thank you, Mayor. Leo, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for, encapsulating some of this. I do have a question, and I did ask city staff this earlier in our one-on-one. Could you clarify, perhaps it's more a question for Pete in the legal department, but we really broadened the definition of a short-term rental in this particular update. Could you elaborate on that? Because we went from, any single-family residence leased or rented for a period of 30 consecutive days or less. That was our definition of a short-term rental. And now we have a relatively robust definition. So could you elaborate?
Yeah, sure. And I'm happy to do that. And Mr. Smith can jump in and rescue me if I step out of my lane. But the original law said single-family rentals, essentially single-family residences can be short-term rentals. And what happened is Mr. Smith just broke down what a single-family residence is. And single-family residences include not just homes, but condos, townhomes, et cetera. So he broke down that term, single-family residence, and just clearly identified what we're talking about. And then additionally, clearly identified what we are not talking about. We are not treating bed and breakfast, hotels, event centers. I think there was a line about education in there. These are not short-term rentals. So I believe that was done for clarification, if I understood. And now honestly, that does help with enforcement, because sometimes we do run into, that kind of debate. Well, we're not a single family, we're a condo. Well, it's in code world, in legalese, you are a single family residence. So it would be helpful on an enforcement perspective. Does that help?
Yes, it does. And I think it's important to elaborate on exactly that point. And then could you also identify a rough count of how many STRs we know have supplied their requirement, if you will, their form, their permit?
Mm-hmm. Right now, as I stand here, there are 35 active licenses. 3 have expired in the past 2 months, and the staff are on those. In fact, 1 is about to be cited for not taking care of business and renewing. And then 1 has deactivated themselves. So they have an active license, but they're not listed anymore. Maybe the house sold, maybe they changed their mind. But so that's what we're looking at is right now, that's the list, about 40.
That's fine.
So.
And then just to remind all of us, it's an annual renewal of this particular permit.
Yes, anniversary year. So it's good for 12 months from whenever you applied.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Leo.
Sure.
Councilman Roman. Councilman Bear? No? Okay. Don't have anybody signed up to speak to this. This item is marked for action.
Mayor, I'll move to approve ordinance number 3796 as presented.
Mayor, I'll second the motion.
Very good. We have motion and second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. As I mentioned at the start of the evening, we did move A9 to the end of the meeting. However, at this time, I want to do 2 other things before we get to that. One, we did have an executive session earlier today, and there is action to be taken on that. So, Councilman Roman?
Mayor, I move that the city manager be authorized to negotiate and execute on behalf of the City of Farmers Branch an amendment to that certain economic development initiative agreement between the city and Heavenhurst Apartments LLC dated April 3rd, 2023, to amend the date for commencement of construction from September 1st, 2023 to March 1st, 2024. and the date for completion of construction from September 1st, 2025 to March 1st, 2026.
Thank you. Motion's been made
Second.
and a second. All in favor? Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Next will be citizen comments, and then we will get to A9. I have one person signed up to speak. Oh, Rick Johnson.
Rick Johnson, Harley Drive, Farmers Branch, Texas. Council members, men and women, and the mayor, and obviously the city manager, and Pete. So why I'm here tonight is because I've seen very disturbing stuff that's gone on, and it's been in the political circle. It seems like we have, now not every board person is part of this, and I'm not picking anybody out. We have groups in the city that do the city's work, right? And it's become trendy to pass things and to basically use them to get what you want, avoid the people and stuff like that. We also have that with organizations in the city. A nonprofit is a nonprofit. They have to bring in what they're going to spend, and just like with your job or your job or your job, you have to live on that budget. It's become very trendy now to say, oh, well, now the city needs to help support us. And these are with charities and everything else in here. And then, so what you get is people who are influenceable in that whole deal, they're told to go out and vote for a certain person. And it's getting to the point to where it's like you're trading basically votes for individuals so that they can get funding. And that's disturbing. And it needs to stop. The other thing is everybody works very hard for their money. And Americans are more giving than anybody else. So to take somebody who's too proud to go ask for help and might work a second job, to take the money you take in from them and to give it to charities, which consequently, they can get the same services at a county, state, or federal level that they can get at any one of these places here. To take tax money from people and to give it to them is just wrong. It's not right. Because sometimes you're getting double dipped because the county does it. You know, triple dipped if the state does it. And you're getting quad dipped if also the federal government does it. How is that right? We're not in the business of, hey, start a charity and then come here and let us take care of you. That's not what it's about. And just like with MetroCrest Services, did they ask any of us, do you need to go build a building that's $21 million and then come back and tell us you need to give us money? No, they didn't care. They raised all that money, but somehow they still have to have money from the citizens of Farmers Branch in the city, just like many other organizations. So it creates a couple different problems. And those are basically, you do stuff for votes, and so the person that's going to give them what they want, they're going to push, whether they're right for the city or not. And then it puts an undue burden on the taxpayers. And it's time to look at it. It's time to stop the gravy train. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is item A9, discuss future agenda items and events. This was something we did not get to do upstairs. So I'm not ending the council meeting, or do I? No, until done with this. Okay. So, Councilman Merritt, did you have anything for A9?
Nothing at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Jackson?
Nothing to add, Mayor, but I would say that looking at this future agenda item list, there's a couple of items on here that have already been addressed, and so if we could just clean the list up, it'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Bennett?
I would like to have Firehouse back. I'd like to discuss exactly what their sponsorship was with us. very specifically. So it's not
They-
about,
They will be coming back.
okay,
They've been put on notice, and we will determine a date for that.
okay.
Councilman Roman.
Yes, I'd like to discuss the city taking over the medians in Mercer Crossing for fiscal year 2024 to 2025.
Say, taking over.
Taking over the medians, maintaining the medians in Mercer Crossing for fiscal year 2024 to 2025.
Councilman Baird?
Nothing this week, thank you.
You may.
Can we add a discussion for the bond to see what's rolling off, where we're going to be at with our taxes, and if we're going to need to go to bond, since we have to have that discussion quickly?
Just for point of clarification, the bond would be impacting the FY 24-25 budget pending a potential bond election in May of 2024. I just want to make sure I differentiate between the current budget discussion and the timeline necessary to start preparation for the next budget cycle as well, which has a debt component. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. I have one myself, and I'd like to develop the city to present us with a street naming policy. Anything else from anybody? Okay, seeing none. That will conclude our council meeting for this evening. Meeting will adjourn at 7:57. Thank you.